is it disingenuous of Donald Trump, or is it disingenuous of someone to say, you know, I was on the MAGA train, but he's turned on us because now he says Iran's a threat? Well, hold on a second. That sounds to me like it's your fault that you didn't know where he stood, and it's your fault for misinforming your audience if you ever even so much as implied that Donald Trump held any position other than Iran can't get a nuke. So there's an argument being made right now. And let me again be very clear. I don't believe that a single American life should be lost for Israel in a domestic fight versus Iran. Like, let them, seems like Israel has it handled. Let them handle it. I also don't think it's a good thing for Iran to get their hands on enriched uranium to the point of a nuclear weapon. So I see the value in Israel dealing with them. Doesn't seem like Russia, doesn't seem like China is going to be entering into the fray. I see a lot of talk out there right now where people are saying that Trump is losing his coalition of supporters. I don't understand what that means. I think it's predicated maybe on the idea that the United States plotted or had something to do with Israel's response to Iran's continuous, strikes and rocket firings. That, as far as we know, that is not the case. I think it's based on the premise that Donald Trump has said that we will enter into this war and send. So he has made it clear that that is not the case. So I don't really know how he's losing his coalition. I want to walk through this here, but I think that's the position of a lot of people, right? We probably don't think it's a good idea for Iran to have nuclear capabilities.
Right? Yeah, that probably hasn't changed. By the way, the CNN panel is taking up this exact question right now on if it's dividing Trump.
Let's see what they say.
Like he knows what's to come, and that's why he's sending that message now.
Certainly, and I think Jeff is right. This is a message to the MAGA world, but it's also a message to Trump and his political conscience. He's saying effectively, you can go ahead and still be compatible with everything you stood for. Remember in 2016 campaign, the moment that the president took down Jeb Bush, it was over the Iraq war.
You guys ever seen a blobfish talk?
No, that's British Brian Regan.
It was a forever war.
Or think about Iran and Israel, right? Yeah? Okay, shouldn't have had a war like that.
When you talk to people at Trump rallies...
It's like Jeff,
those
what's his name?
days are gone.
Guy from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Trump, if he goes ahead,
Garland?
Jeff Garland had a baby with Brian Regan and a blobfish.
And a blobfish.
So this is what they're doing, and I think that a lot of people are being teed up for this. They're trying to sow division. Now, I would tell you this. I would definitely have a problem with Donald Trump if Donald Trump lied to the American public and this administration had direct involvement in attacking Iran. I'd have a problem with it. I would have a problem with it if I saw President Trump saying, we're going to enter into this war and put boots on the ground. I've not seen either of those things. I have seen him going back to 2011 say that Iran cannot be a nuclear power consistently.
Yep.
So let me go through this for you. And you guys can send me your chats and let me know. Donald Trump posted this on Truth yesterday. He said, Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. What a shame. What a shame. Waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. Somebody please explain to kooky Tucker Carlson that Iran cannot have a nuclear
weapon.
But that has not stopped kooky Tucker Carlson from selling the new Cuckoo Carlson Doomsday Clock. Don't take it too seriously, hero worshippers.
Everybody gets made fun of a little, okay? It's good medicine for all.
We just had Tom Holman as the copper tone baby. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, my God.
And he's going to have a beer with me, and it'll be fine.
Yes. Really quickly, before we move on.
Go.
Go.
No, you go.
No,
by all means.
Your show.
I'll go.
Okay, I'll go. So, Vice President Vance actually just put out a statement. That
Okay.
I think that's one of the things that they're talking about right now as well. So, if we can bring the Vance post up.
It's a long post, so I'll have to scroll it. But if we want.
Okay. So, and I think I'll just read kind of the first part. I don't know if you can see it there or not, but look, I'm seeing this from the inside, and I am admittedly biased towards our president and my friend, but there's a lot of crazy stuff on social media, so I wanted to address some things directly. He's been amazingly consistent over 10 years that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Okay, that's obviously we understand.
And we'll provide the receipts, references, always available in every description for each show.
Right. So, and you guys can go and read all of that too. So, second, I've seen a lot of confusion over the issue of civil nuclear power and uranium enrichment. These are distinct issues. Iran could have civilian nuclear power without enrichment, but they rejected that. Okay, scroll up so I can get to see point number 3 there. If
They
there's a
said
point
second.
number 3.
Wait, this is the second.
That was the second point.
Oh, okay,
So
sorry.
the second point is the enrichment part of it.
Okay.
It's one thing to want civilian nuclear energy. It's another thing to demand sophisticated enrichment capacity, and it's still another thing to cling to enrichment while simultaneously violating basic non-proliferation obligations and enriching right to the point of weapons-grade uranium. That is a big part of this deal, right?
Yes.
I've seen some snippets of this as well, so I think there's one part that I'm going to try to get to. I have yet to see a single good argument for why Iran needed to enrich above the threshold for civilian use, right? So we've talked about that too.
Yep.
Meanwhile, the president has shown remarkable restraint in keeping our military's focus on protecting our troops and protecting our citizens. He may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment. That decision ultimately belongs to the president. And of course, people are right to be worried about foreign entanglement after the last 25 years of idiotic foreign policy.
Clear.
That is a nod to everybody who's saying we don't want to do this again.
Yep.
Keep it back up. It's a nod to everybody, right?
Yep.
Just making sure people understand what's going on. And here's his final thought. But I believe the president has earned some trust on this issue. And having seen this up close and personal, I can assure you that he is only interested in using the American military to accomplish the American people's goals. Whatever he does, that is his focus.
Okay.
I think that last part's very, very key. He's earned some trust on this issue. He's been very consistent on this issue.
The most anti-war president, including of Democrats, of our lifetime.
Yeah.
In other words, if he's not anti-war enough, then there is nobody anti-war enough.
Right.
What did you vote for? Look, I'll tell you what I voted for. I did vote for reducing foreign entanglements. But I really did vote for dealing with the immigration issue. I really did vote for freedom for Americans, freedom of speech. And I voted to reverse the course of our economy, which was moving towards, by and large, centralization and basically the elimination of American autonomy. That is what I voted for. Foreign entanglements are a part of that. And I will say that him being the most anti-war president of my lifetime is pretty good. Is it perfect? No. I don't know who else I could have voted for who would have been more anti-foreign entanglement. Also, President Trump, we don't need to show the clip. He left G7 early to say he was going to focus on this. Of course, Vance is addressing, I would imagine in large part, the firestorm going off right now on X. So it's time for some Claim Truth. So the claim that you see from the left, and I'm going to disabuse you of these notions because X is not real life in a lot of ways. Sometimes really just the people who scream the loudest have a platform. The claim is that President Trump is losing his coalition. This is Candace Owens saying Donald Trump just completely fractured his base, and he did it for the very neocons who minted the #NeverTrump movement. Truly unbelievable. Cernovich said Trump had a generational coalition. He was the first Republican to win the popular vote in 2 decades, and now he's squandering it for Lindsey Graham. Marty R. Maid said Trump allying with the people who signed the Never Trump letter and spent years calling him Hitler against his organic working and middle-class base, people who were ridiculed, harassed, and physically attacked for supporting him, is a betrayal of Shakespearean proportions. Now do Elon Musk and H-1B visas. Here's the truth. Trump has always warned of the threat of a nuclear Iran. He's been remarkably consistent even when he had no ambitions to run for office. Here's a post, you know it as X, back then on Twitter in 2011. It was less raspy, so Iran's quest for nuclear weapons is a major threat to our nation's national security interests. We can't allow Iran to go nuclear. That's in 2011. Do you remember that famous escalator ride that everyone talks about, which changed the fabric of America going forward for good? That was President Trump, 2015. He rode down that escalator and onto the podium to deliver, in part, the speech you're about to see, 2015.
With a baby in a hand, near the North Street light.
Take a look at the deal he's making with Iran. He makes that deal, Israel maybe won't exist very long. It's a disaster, and we have to protect Israel. I will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons.
So before he was running for president, 2011 was very clear. By the way, at the same time was against the war in Iraq, and while running for the presidency, said that he was always against the war in Iraq. At that same moment in time, saying Iran can't achieve the nuclear enrichment to be able to have nuclear weapons, and then running for president, said the same thing. Here's another truth. President Trump's coalition, if by coalition you mean the people who support him, it's not fractured. It's fine. So according to Rasmussen, people who agree with this statement: Iran must never be allowed to have a nuke. 84% agree, disagree 9%. Now, how we stop Iran from having a nuke? Okay, there can be some disagreement. I can't think of a better option than someone else doing it. Just my opinion. It's just my opinion. Just my opinion. Here's another question, Rasmus. Would Iran use a nuke against America? 63% say yes, 30% disagree. Here's another one. U.S. should support Israel's efforts to take out Iran's nuke program. The total on agree is 60%. 78% of Republicans, his coalition largely, 47% of Democrats.
And 54% of independents.
54% of independents. Oh. Now, how that looks, and I'll tell you how it looks to me. I don't want to see any Americans' lives lost, but I think saying an American life lost for Israel is very different from saying a strategic military operation to quell a nuclear capability for a terrorist nation. Those are very different things. But if people simply equate, you have people right now saying, America, hey, I voted for America first. That doesn't mean going to die for Israel. Well, who's talking about going to die for Israel? I haven't heard anyone talk about that.
Yeah. There's a lot of very smart people out there making very dumb kind of connections. And I say that respectfully. I understand that your position is that we shouldn't get entangled in a foreign war, especially not in the Middle East. That's Donald Trump's position as well.
Right.
And it's been his position consistently. It got us out of, or at least had the plan to get us out of Afghanistan. Right? He is the guy that does not want to get involved. Not one soldier. I don't want one plane going over that country right now either. I don't want to get involved in any way, shape, or form. I don't want a plane getting shot down, false flag or not, for all the people out there who may say that, to get us into a war. But sending assets over to the region is not the same as attacking. Look at everything that Donald Trump has done. And look, if he ends up going and completely fooling us all and he's sending ground troops into Iran and he's going to try to do a regime change in Tehran, fine. I'll come back on and I'll say, I am so sorry. I completely missed the signs. But they're just not there for me right now. This is not how he operates. Sending that over there, what do you think that does to the Ayatollah going, will they get involved? Won't they get involved? Having that asset in the region makes it a hell of a lot more likely that they could get involved if he doesn't sign a deal.
Right.
This could just all be, like Donald Trump has done in the past, part of negotiations for him. And everybody that is running to the exits because they're afraid that Donald Trump is going to get us into a foreign war needs to just chill out a second and think about who they're talking about.
Well, anyone saying that right now Americans are dying for Israel is being a fool. That's not happening right now. Could it happen a week from now? Sure. But is that happening right now? Has Donald Trump signaled that? No, he is not. I've seen, is it the USS Nimitz that was put over there? So I've seen, this is a perfect example of where people take something that logically makes sense, and if they're starting off with the premise, ooh, Israeli influence, it's Israel, it's Jew influence, they come to a conclusion that frankly defies reason. So I've seen people say,
where did they say it was?
It was in the South China Sea, I believe, or somewhere around.
Yeah, someone can bring up.
It's normal for aircraft carriers and for battleships to be in the area.
Well, what they're saying is
we have naval bases at Bahrain,
right,
Kuwait, Qatar. We have so many bases over there.
Yeah. Well, what they're saying is those right now who have no basis for this thing. Oh, the Nimitz is our oldest in that fleet and is set to be decommissioned next year. Yeah. So that he's sending that so it can be destroyed as a false flag. Or the most logical explanation could be, since we are not involved, go like, yeah, all right, it's kind of no skin off our nose. This thing's about to be decommissioned next year. Yeah, we can send that to some friends to keep an eye on it. Which one seems more likely? That he's sending something about to be decommissioned a year from now so that the Israelis can take it out like the USS Liberty, according to these people, as a false flag to get us into World War III? Or, it's the least valuable one in our fleet, and since it's not really our conflict, let's send them a gimme.
Is it also the closest one?
I don't know.
I don't know
there
if
might
it
not
is
even
the
be any of that
closest
at all.
That would
it might be. What are the other aircraft carriers doing? How many do we have? 7?
We have 11.
We have 11. So what are the other ones doing?
I believe we have 11, and the next closest nation is China with 2.
Oh, cool.
Or 3?
Yeah, that's apparently the list of where all of our carriers are at current.
Well, so there's no one else in the area. It just wouldn't it make sense to send the one that's in the area?
No, they're sending it so the Jews can destroy it for a false flag.
I know.
So that Americans will die for Jews.
It's silly.
Look,
you're showing your total lack of tactical knowledge while talking about tactical subject.
I know. I know.
It's goofy.
Yeah,
I don't
it
even know. I wish I had something intelligent to say about it, but it's just straight goofy.
Well, and it would be completely like if the Hodge twins, and I love those guys, but sometimes they have some ideas that I don't really love. If those guys, Ian Carroll's of the world, Dave Smiths and Candace Owens, Cernovich, if they had gotten, and it's Martyr Made, it's not Marty R. Made.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just got to mess with you a little bit.
All right.
Martyr Made.
Hold on. Admonish me. The guy deserves to have his name
I don't
said properly when I read a silly, dumb tweet.
Yeah, how dare you?
If what they were doing right now is saying, we don't support a war in Iran, and we do not want to have any
Totally
Americans at war in Iran in the Middle East. If that's what they were saying right now and kind of raising that alarm, we would all be in agreement.
They'd be saying what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly. But that doesn't get clicks. Right now, World War III does. Right now, False Flag does. Right now, they're just going to sink it because it's a year later. And right now, C-17, refueling or whatever it is, there are all these people going over there. That's what gets clicks right now.
Let me ask you this. They constantly try and have this authenticity test. Who's being fake? This is a real question. They're saying, he's losing his coalition because he's a traitor. Who's being fake? The people who say, I hope we don't get into a war, but obviously I've always thought it's a real problem if Iran gets to the point of having a nuke. Okay, and by the way, voted for Donald Trump. I believe most people here did. I don't know exact, but I think pretty strongly, okay, because I don't ask people how they vote. Okay, and Donald Trump in 2011 and in 2015, as part of his announcement, his party, his homecoming party, hey, he's running for president, went out of his way to speak about how he would stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon. That was one of his, I would say, top 5 issues he was most vocal on in criticizing the Obama administration. He would campaign on that. He would talk about what a bad deal it was and how Barack Obama had no idea how to make a deal. So from 2011, 2015, all the way through his first administration, by the way, when you look at the undoing of Obama's policies, which Biden then undid, unfreezing cash to Iran, he's been remarkably consistent. And so I don't think that he's a traitor for being the exact same person with the exact same position that he had in 2011. Now, you may not like his 2011 position, 2015 position, or his position today. Of course, that's a fair position to hold. But is it disingenuous of Donald Trump, or is it disingenuous of someone to say, I was on the MAGA train, but he's turned on us because now he says Iran's a threat? Well, hold on a second. That sounds to me like it's your fault that you didn't know where he stood, and it's your fault for misinforming your audience if you ever even so much as implied that Donald Trump held any position other than Iran can't get a nuke. I think that's your fault.
Yeah. And I also think it's just anti-Israel bias. And you can have a very reasonable point that Israel potentially would want to drag us into a war for regime change because it would solve a lot of their problems.
Sure.
Right? I think that's a reasonable point to make. And I think if we ever had evidence of them trying to draw us into this war in a very tangible way, then we should take dramatic action against that. Like if there was a false flag event, I mean, look, you go back to the USS Liberty thing, we can talk about that ad nauseum, but that was, 1960 something? Like, we're not talking about present day stuff right now. Was it 67? So what I want to make sure that we don't do is miss opportunities to have good common ground.
Yeah.
Israel has been saying for the last 30 years, we had articles going back to 1995 that they were close to getting a bomb. It was 5 years away in that
Iran
article,
was.
right? I'm sorry, that Iran was close to getting a bomb. That can also be very true. We've also had Stuxnet. We've also had raids. We've also had bombings of their facilities. We've also had killing of their top scientists. We've also had deals that we've done that have kept that from happening as quickly. You can make the argument that maybe this is an opportunistic strike. Maybe. But you have to read the IAEA report where they're hiding some of this stuff. And they're calling them out on the fact that they're hiding. You're like, well, they signed on to this treaty and non-proliferation. Yeah, they're doing things that go directly against that. And they're hiding some of this material. And they're enriching past obvious civilian use.
Yes.
You tell me what they're doing.
I would also say, hey, I think it's a valid argument to say, well, hold on a second. Israel hasn't signed on to that, and we're not able to inspect their nuclear capabilities.
100%.
I completely agree.
They have to.
I think I think Israel absolutely should.
Yep.
And if anything, I would use this as leverage to say, by the way, Israel, you got to let us know.
You got to do this.
You got to let us know. I think that's fair. I think we find common ground there. I think Donald Trump, if you're going to sort of look at his position, you could just say, is it IAEA, right?
Yep.
Yeah. You could just, I'm horrible with acronyms.
I know, it's hard.
You could say, what's his position? It's exactly the same as the IAEA on Iraq and Iran. They said Iraq is not nuclear capable. Donald Trump was against the war in Iraq. They have now said that Iran is weeks away from being to the point of the capabilities of developing a nuke.
Right.
And Donald Trump has. If this was not a point of contention for a very long time, then you wouldn't have Barack Obama's Iran nuclear deal, which Donald Trump campaigned on criticizing.
Yeah.
The world has been concerned about Iran having a nuke for decades. Now, you may say that you're not. That's fine. And it's not the mainstream view, but you can hold it. But you cannot claim that Donald Trump has done a 180. This is exactly his position.
Yeah.
That's a
lie.
It's a lie. It's a lie to say
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have a problem with it. There was a clip, I saw this yesterday, it was circulating, a Douglas Murray clip from like 13 years ago, where he was talking about how everyone criticizes Israel and is afraid of Israel attacking Iran's nuclear sites. And he said they'll criticize them and then walk home happy they did it.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I can't remember, I'm not getting the words right. He's a well-spoken man, but
Yeah.
it says something like that. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's a great point. Like, everyone's going to be like, screw Israel. But
Well, thank God.
thank God they did that.
Yeah.
Now they can't threaten us with closing the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah.
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 Now they can't do this. They can't fire this.
I don't think that Israel is the ally that the evangelical church and that the Republican Party has made them out to be
Correct.
in a lot of ways. I completely agree with that. For example, I think we need to be able to see what they're doing, what they're up to as far as nukes.
Yeah.
I do think that there's some uncomfortable ties as far as intelligence and Mossad. I would say the same about the CIA and FBI. Remember when I asked candidates saying, will you disband our 3-letter agencies? Because that's kind of a prerequisite, or at least destroy them and build them up as something new. I would apply the same criticism toward Mossad. But I also don't think that they are the worst enemy of the United States in contrast to Iran, which some people are making right now. I think that's a view that most Americans have, and I would point you to the poll that says 84% of Americans agree that Iran must never be allowed to have a nuke.
Yeah. And let me just clear up a couple of things too. So one, we're not depending on the IAEA alone.
No,
in
of
the
course not.
report, because Iran has said that they've enriched up to that point, 60%. Two, it's weapons grade, basically material at that point if they go the full 3 weeks from now claim, right? So in 3 weeks they could have weapons grade uranium, not a bomb. That's a totally different
I'm saying
thing.
nuclear. They could have nuclear capabilities.
Well, it
the
would be a
capabilities to
couple of
create a
years.
nuke.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
But what they're trying to do right now in the media is go, oh, no. The administration actually said that they're actually years away. Well, we're not making the case that they're going to have a bomb in 3 weeks. We're making a case that they're going to have weapons grade uranium.
They're going to have what they
weeks.
need to make a bomb.
Exactly.
Once you have
And
that,
that's
it's
a
a very
big
long
deal.
process, but you now have think of it as the raw materials. They don't even have the raw materials right now. Uranium needs to be enriched to a certain degree to be weapons grade. Vance obviously spoke on that quite a bit. I'm not a nuclear scientist. Once they get to that threshold, then they protect it with everything they have so that they can get to work building a bomb.
And I think Lane told us there was like a 12-year gap between the enrichment of uranium getting to the right point in North Korea until they had a delivery mechanism essentially for it. I can't remember if that was the right number of years, but it's a process.
What was Oppenheimer's gap?
I don't know. Very quickly.
Because that was pretty quick. I mean, can they not be building a bomb now that without the uranium to insert into the warhead?
We're trying to
Is it
use the
like-
most conservative, in other words,
Sure.
provide the most amount of, like, hey, maybe not. But, and by the way, a big difference too between North Korea and Iran, it's almost a difference between an isolationist and a caliphate. Where North Korea, we're not going to be able to tell North Korea anything right now, just to be clear.
No.
But it seems, and Lane and I were talking about this, seems like they have an interest in preserving their own nation. And of course, there's also China between us and them who kind of have an interest in North Korea not acting up too much. They're sort of frenemies.
It feels like
as far
North
as Iran,
Korea
they have said what they would do with the nukes. They have said we want to wipe out not only Israel but Western civilization. They've been very clear about it. They seek to expand. North Korea doesn't seem like they want to. So the contrast matters because of their stated intent.
Yeah. And what if I told you as Christians, maybe this will help make the point. Well, obviously as Christians, we're waiting for the second coming of Christ, unless you're a preterist and there's like 5 of those people. So whatever. I've been arguing with you on Twitter. You think, okay, we're waiting on the second coming of Christ. Fantastic. And when that happens, justice, peace, tranquility, the world is going to be fantastic. Every tear is wiped from your eye. All of those wonderful things. What if I told you that all you had to do was start global conflict to make the second coming of Christ return or happen? Like that was the trigger moment for it. You'd be like, well, maybe it's good to start global conflict so that we can have the second coming and have heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is a lot better than hell on earth, what we have right now. That's an apocalyptic kind of ideology. That is the Iranian ideology. It's the 12th Imam. There has to be global conflict for the 12th Imam to come back. So do you really want to give them the means to facilitate global conflict?
Yeah.
That is in their ideology. That is something that people don't understand. It's not just preserve us and we don't like Israel. It's we don't like Israel. We don't like the West. We're probably going to give this material to other people. We fund 7 different affiliate, terrorist organizations to attack Israel in the first place. And it's really good if we do this because it brings about our end of times and ushers in the 12th Imam and the global caliphate. That's a different scenario that most of these guys have no clue about.
Right. And it doesn't make you a hawk.
No.
It doesn't make you a neocon to be like, yeah, I think it's probably best if Iran doesn't have nuclear capabilities. I think 80-something%, 84% of Americans agree with that. Right now, no one is dying for Israel. And by the way, if there is, let's say, a strategic, I do want to go, but if there is a strategic military strike, let's say there's an opportunity to guarantee that they don't reach these nuclear capabilities, that still doesn't mean that Americans are dying for Israel. Different people can have similar interests. You understand? It doesn't mean that it's being done for Israel. If we're pressured into it, like Gerald said, if we're boxed in, that's a problem. And us and the Jews in that country need to have a little bit of a talk. We're not there. My main issue is it's your fault if you didn't know that Donald Trump has always said and maintained that Iran should not be able to get a nuke, and he will do everything in his power to stop it. It's not new. Just like I had to hold my nose on some of the gun issues because I know that Donald Trump is not the best Second Amendment president as far as his track record. But I know that. I wouldn't be able to tell you, I'm surprised. Just like he's not as conservative as me on abortion. But I wouldn't be able to say, I can't believe he's a traitor to us because he's allowed exceptions for rape and incest. But he said it. He said it, to be clear. It's your fault if you didn't know it. And that doesn't mean that people are dying for Jews. I want to hear what you were going to say.
Oh, you were saying that it's not unreasonable to say that you don't want Iran to have nukes. I don't want Canada to have them.
Right. I don't want anyone but us to have
Germany,
them.
France. Yeah, that's.
I know.
That's how I feel about guns too. I feel like I should be the only one allowed to own guns. I don't want anybody else.
Yeah, I get it.
No, I'm kidding, but seriously, why would you want somebody who said these things time and time again to have a nuke?
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not traitorous to do exactly what he said in the past.
Yeah, let's say you live on a block, okay? And you have a house that's, I don't know, on your street, 10 houses down. All right. 10 houses down is a real dick. Let's call him Bad Steve. And let's say, not to be confused with Good Steve.
Good Steve. Okay.
There is a Good Steve. I don't want my words to be misconstrued. Because I actually have one neighbor named Steve, who, by the way, we went in halvesies to get a fence because our dogs were able to get through the holes. Love Good Steve. There is no Bad Steve. This is fictional. So, 10 houses down, there's Bad Steve. And let's say he's on parole. So they check in with him, and he's a felon. He's not allowed to own a gun. And he keeps saying, you know what? Yeah, as soon as I can, I got a line on a few fully automatic weapons that can't be tracked. And as soon as I get them, I'm lighting up this block. Just letting you know, all of you can kiss your ass goodbye. And right next to him is Bob. That's Israel. And Bob sees him bringing in the parts to create said fully automatic weapons.
Is that
He's like, hey, guys, he's able to do this, but I have a straight line of sight through his master bedroom right here, and I see him stocking up. He keeps saying he's going to shoot everyone on this block. I'm gonna take him out, right? But then let's say that you had a rocket where you knew you could take out Bad Steve, even though you're 10 houses down. Does that mean you're doing the bidding of Bob? Or do both of you not want Steve, who has said he will kill you when he procures these weapons? Do you just happen to have an aligned interest? We need to be able to differentiate between the two. Because yes, sometimes we have done bidding that are not in the American people's interest. Is it in the interest of the United States of America to prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon? I think there's a strong case to be made, but there can be no debate that Donald Trump absolutely believes that's in the best interest of America.
Yeah.
So you can say you don't agree with it. You can't say that he lied to you, that he's a traitor, or that he's not America first. His decision, or his viewpoint, I should say, that Iran should not have a nuke, ever, has always been predicated on his view of putting America first.
Yeah. He also just released a new truth. He's negotiating in only the way that Trump could.
Okay.
So if you'd like to read.
All right, let me see it.
For our audience here.
All right. We know exactly where the so-called Supreme Leader is hiding more like a Supreme burrito. Taco Supreme, sour cream. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out. Kill! Exclamation parentheses. At least not for now. Who knows? Who knows? But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
He's negotiating. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I know that there are a lot of people that get, rightfully worried about Israel and their influence on American politics and whether we're being led into wars by Israel. And I get that. But you're letting your hatred for everything Israel right now change you. Trump has not changed one bit.
Yep.
You have.
Yep.
And that's fine. You can have concerns. And there are a lot of people that are very concerned about what Israel is doing. I think there's a lot of good cause to be concerned.
Absolutely.
In a lot of cases. So let's fix that. But let's also not let this idea that Israel is always going to be nefarious and bad and demonic, I've seen some people say, and go after. Let's not let that cloud what we have known since Iran started enriching uranium, especially when we knew that they were doing it past the point they said they were and past the point of civilian peaceful use.
And by the way, AIPAC should have to register under FISA, and so should any organizations
just
receiving
want
their
all the
money
money
from Qatar, from Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Yeah, or get it all out. I completely agree. I hate AIPAC for the same reason I hate Act Blue, because they give to Hakeem Jeffries and whatever other asshole of the month club.
Yeah.
Let's grab some chats, because I know we did a whole extra.
Sure, we didn't piss anybody off.
Honestly, look, I think it's one of those. I think it's one of those things where most people are able to be pretty sensible on this. Wherever you line up, it's not fair for you to say that Donald Trump is a traitor if he lines up exactly where he always has.
Yeah.
That's a fact. We can disagree on whether he's right, or we can find some common ground on whether he's right. You can't misstate his position.
Yeah.
That's just dishonest.
Well, and Lane actually brought something up, it just as for the audience, like what would your position be if we supplied them with munitions to be able to go after some of the Iranians, right? So bunker busting, munitions, stuff like that.
Israel?
If we
Sell
sold
it to them like we have before.
If we sold
give.
them weapons.
If we sold, like we always have?
Yeah, pretty much.
By the way, not just to Israel, but to a lot of.
I don't know if we sell them bunker
Well, I
buster
mean, they're
bombs
already
or
using our
what,
F-14s.
but,
Yeah. I can understand a case to be made that we shouldn't be doing that because we're funding both sides of this war. I can understand that case to be made. I'd have to think about it. I would rather see Israel deal with this right now. If it's a status quo as far as selling, munitions or any type of arms, yeah, I don't know why we would stop. But if it's
I'm fine with
in
selling
addition
them
to,
weapons.
yeah,
we've been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah.
It's not like they just have them of their own accord. We're
Right.
doing that. I would sell though, not give.
sell.
Not like the Ukraine thing. For me, the principle is basically the same. If you guys are going to start something, you need to be able to handle yourselves.
Yep.
Go do it. And Ukraine didn't start necessarily, obviously, with Russia, but they need to be able to do things themselves, in my opinion, because they haven't negotiated some kind of peace for it. So yeah, I'm fine. Sell them. They want bunker buster. Fantastic. We got 50 right over here. We'll make you a deal on 60.
Sell them the crap we don't want.
Yeah. You want the Nimitz?
I don't know, but I also understand why it's charged. I also understand why people could view that as if you're selling, you're incentivizing their behavior if they're going to continue, starting wars. I understand. I think it's a legitimate argument to be made that selling weapons to Israel gives them no reason to try and seek more peaceful negotiations. It gives them the ability to negotiate from a position of strength that they wouldn't otherwise. I understand that case to be made.
Yeah.
I do. I get it. I think that's very reasonable.
But we want them in a position of strength with dealing with nuclear facilities.
Dealing with Iran.
If we want Iran's nuclear program to stop, we want them in a position of strength. Why would we not sell them the bombs to go do this?
Why do you think that other Gulf states, and why do you think that even Hezbollah are like, yeah, you guys should probably... No one wants Iran to be a nuclear capability, including the people in the world, these countries in the world that are largely Islamic countries. They don't want it because Iran, as far as a government, is a shitheel. Okay? They're a little shit weasel. All right? Let's be clear about that. Iran is a little shit weasel. You can say that Netanyahu may be somewhat of a shit weasel as well. Okay, fine. I think there's a case to be made. Iran is without a doubt a little shit weasel. Hey, do you like what you saw? I don't know how because it's on YouTube and we have to cut all the good parts out. So you should tune in live weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern on Rumble, where we can still speak freely and even use words like and gay and whoa. You've been here this whole time?
Yeah. It's not good.